I stand in my parents' driveway, staring at my sister Ashley's brand new BMW X7 worth $74,500. 3 months ago, my parents called my tech startup idea too risky when I asked for $71,000. They said they couldn't afford to lose that money. But somehow they found the cash to buy Ashley her dream car and fund her failing photography business. Now they're calling me, desperate, begging me to sell my house to bail them out of debt. My answer is simple. No. Let me take you back 3 months to where this whole mess began. I was 28 years old, working as a senior software engineer at TechFlow Solutions in Austin, Texas. After 5 years of climbing the corporate ladder, I had finally saved enough money and developed an idea that could change everything. I called it TaskBridge, a revolutionary app that would connect local service workers with homeowners for small jobs that were too minor for major contractors but too complex for general handymen. I had spent 18 months developing this concept in my spare time. Every evening after work, every weekend, every vacation day was dedicated to research, market analysis, and building a working prototype. I interviewed over 200 potential users, surveyed local contractors, and analyzed competitor weaknesses. The numbers were incredible. The market gap was real, and I had the technical skills to fill it. My girlfriend Emma had watched me pour my heart into this project. She was a marketing coordinator at a local startup and understood the entrepreneur mindset. She believed in TaskBridge as much as I did, maybe even more. When I finally finished my business plan, she was the first person I showed it to. "Drake, this is brilliant," she said, reviewing the 40-page document I had printed and bound. "You've thought of everything. Customer acquisition costs, revenue projections, competitive analysis. This isn't some pipe dream. This is a real business." I knew she was right, but I also knew I needed more than my savings and a small business loan to make TaskBridge truly successful. I needed family support, both emotional and financial. That's why I decided to present my idea to my parents, Robert and Linda. My dad worked as an insurance agent for State Farm, and my mom was a real estate assistant. They were practical, hard-working people who had always emphasized financial responsibility. I thought they would appreciate the thorough research and conservative projections I had prepared. I scheduled a Sunday dinner at their house in Cedar Park, a suburb north of Austin. I brought printed copies of my business plan, my laptop with the prototype, and a detailed presentation showing exactly how their $71,000 investment would be used: equipment purchases, initial marketing budget, operational expenses for the first year, and a small salary to allow me to work full-time on the business. "Mom, Dad, I want to show you something I've been working on," I said after we finished eating. I pulled out my laptop and launched into my presentation. I explained the problem. Homeowners struggled to find reliable workers for small projects: painting a single room, fixing a leaky faucet, installing new light fixtures, minor electrical work. These jobs were too small for major contractors but too specialized for general maintenance companies. TaskBridge solves this by creating a verified network of skilled workers who specialize in these smaller projects. I explained, showing them the app interface. Homeowners can post their job, see verified worker profiles with reviews and ratings, get instant quotes, and book services directly through the platform. I walked them through the revenue model, the marketing strategy, and the financial projections. Conservative estimates showed profitability within 18 months, with potential for significant growth once we established market presence in Austin and could expand to other Texas cities. The total investment needed is $71,000, I concluded. I've already saved $35,000, and I can get a small business loan for $20,000. I'm asking you to invest $16,000 as family support, with the understanding that this carries risk but also significant potential return. The silence that followed felt like an eternity. My dad leaned back in his chair, and my mom looked uncomfortable. "Drake, honey," my mom finally said, "this sounds very complicated. Tech companies fail all the time. We see it on the news constantly." "But I have real market research," I replied. "I've identified a genuine need and developed a solution." "You have a good job," my dad added. "Why would you want to risk that? Software engineers make excellent money. You could have a comfortable life without taking these kinds of chances." I felt my heart sinking, but I pressed on. "Dad, this isn't just about money. This is about building something meaningful. The potential for growth is enormous. If TaskBridge succeeds, it could be worth millions. And if it fails, you've lost everything," my mother said sharply. "We can't afford to lose $16,000, Drake. That's a significant amount of money for us." The conversation continued for another hour, but the outcome never changed. They saw my startup as a risky gamble rather than a calculated business decision. They questioned every aspect of my plan, from market viability to my technical capabilities. By the end of the evening, I felt completely defeated. "We love you, and we want you to succeed," my dad said, as I packed up my materials. "But we can't support this financially. It's just too risky." I drove home that night feeling crushed. Emma was waiting for me with a cup of coffee and a sympathetic ear. They said no. I told her before she could even ask. "I'm sorry, baby," she said, wrapping her arms around me. "But this doesn't mean you have to give up. You can still make this work with bootstrap funding." She was right, of course. I could launch TaskBridge without their investment. It would be harder, require more personal financial risk, and take longer to scale. But it was possible. 2 weeks later, I made the decision to pursue my dream anyway. I applied for a larger small business loan, used more of my personal savings than originally planned, and began the process of turning my side project into a real company. That's when my neighbor Carl dropped the bomb that changed everything. I was checking my mail when Carl walked over from his yard. He was retired, spent most of his time gardening and keeping track of neighborhood gossip. "Hey, Drake, I heard your sister got that fancy photography studio downtown," he said casually. "Your folks must be doing pretty well to help her with that kind of investment." I stopped sorting through my mail. "What photography studio?" "The one on South First Street," Carl continued. "My wife drives by it all the time. Ashley's name is right there on the lease sign. Beautiful space, probably costs a fortune. Good for your parents for supporting her artistic dreams." My blood ran cold. The same week my parents had told me they couldn't afford to invest $16,000 in my carefully planned business. They had somehow found money to fund Ashley's photography venture. I spent the rest of that evening researching commercial real estate prices in South Austin. A studio space on South First Street would cost at least $3,000 per month, plus security deposits, equipment, and startup costs. We were talking about a minimum initial investment of $20,000, possibly much more. That night, I barely slept. The pieces were starting to come together, and I didn't like the picture they were forming. To understand what happened next, I need to explain the dynamic between Ashley and me that had existed our entire lives. She was 26, 2 years younger than me, and had always been the golden child in our family. Where I had been the responsible one, Ashley was the creative free spirit. Where I earned scholarships and worked part-time jobs to pay for college, Ashley received full financial support for her expensive private art school education. Where I studied computer science at the University of Texas and graduated with honors, Ashley dropped out of the Art Institute of Austin after 3 semesters to find herself. The pattern had been consistent since childhood. I remember being 12 years old and mowing lawns to save money for a new bicycle, while Ashley received a brand new mountain bike for her 10th birthday simply because she mentioned wanting one. In high school, I worked at a local grocery store to pay for my car insurance and gas money. Ashley got a credit card for emergencies that she used regularly for shopping trips and dinners with friends. When I graduated college and started my career, I moved into a small apartment and furnished it gradually with pieces I could afford. Ashley lived rent-free in my parents' house until she was 24, never contributing to household expenses or helping with chores. But the photography business revelation opened my eyes to just how extensive this favoritism had become in recent years. I started asking questions, carefully and indirectly. I called my Aunt Sarah, my mom's sister, who had always been the family gossip hub. "Aunt Sarah, I heard Ashley opened a photography studio," I said during a casual phone call. "That's exciting." "Oh yes, your parents are so proud," she replied. "Linda told me they helped her get started." Apparently, the equipment alone cost $15,000. Professional cameras, lighting systems, editing software. Plus, they helped with the studio, lease, and setup costs. $15,000 for equipment, plus lease costs, plus setup expenses. The numbers were adding up quickly. I decided to investigate further. A few days later, I drove by Ashley's studio address. It was indeed a beautiful space in a trendy part of town, exactly the kind of location that would cost serious money. I called Ashley directly, pretending to be excited about her new business. "Ashley, I heard about your studio. That's amazing. How's business going?" "It's incredible, Drake," she said, her voice full of enthusiasm. "I'm finally able to pursue my passion full-time. Mom and Dad have been so supportive. They understand that art requires investment." "What kind of photography are you focusing on?" I asked. "Well, I'm building my portfolio right now. I've done some portrait sessions, a few small events. I'm really concentrating on developing my Instagram presence and building my brand as an influencer. The studio is perfect for content creation. Content creation, Instagram presence, influencer brand. These weren't the words of someone running a serious photography business. This sounded like an expensive hobby subsidized by our parents. Over the following weeks, I pieced together more information. Ashley had convinced our parents that she needed professional-grade equipment to compete in the photography market. She had convinced them that a prime location was essential for attracting high-end clients. She had convinced them that this was an investment in her future career. But when I looked at her Instagram account and her photography website, the evidence told a different story. Her posts were mostly lifestyle content featuring herself in expensive outfits, dining at trendy restaurants, and traveling to scenic locations for inspiration shoots. The actual client work was minimal and inconsistent. Emma helped me research Ashley's social media presence more thoroughly. What we found was disturbing. "Drake, look at this," Emma said, showing me Ashley's Instagram stories from the past month. "She's posting from expensive restaurants 3 or 4 times a week, designer shopping trips, weekend getaways to San Antonio and Dallas. How is she affording this lifestyle with a new photography business?" The answer became clear when I talked to my cousin Mark, who worked in Austin's creative industry and knew about Ashley's situation. "Man, your sister is living large," Mark told me during a casual conversation. "I see her at networking events all the time, always talking about her upcoming projects and collaborations. She acts like she's this successful entrepreneur." I assumed business was booming, but when Mark mentioned specific details, it became obvious that Ashley's success was entirely funded by our parents. The expensive equipment was being used primarily for her personal social media content. The studio was more of a personal workspace and content creation facility than a legitimate business location. Most disturbing was learning that Ashley had been telling people in the creative community that our parents were her angel investors and that she was running a funded startup. She was using their financial support to create a false image of success and entrepreneurship. I felt sick. While I had been working nights and weekends to bootstrap my legitimate business idea, while I had been saving every penny and researching every detail, Ashley had been handed everything she needed to play entrepreneur without any of the actual work or risk. The inequality wasn't just about money. It was about respect, trust, and belief in our respective capabilities. Our parents had looked at my detailed business plan, my technical expertise, my market research, and my proven track record of responsibility, and they had said it was too risky. But they had looked at Ashley's vague artistic aspirations, her history of not following through on commitments, and her complete lack of business experience, and they had decided that was worth a significant investment. Emma was furious when I shared these discoveries with her. "Drake, this is insane," she said. "They're literally funding her Instagram lifestyle while telling you that your legitimate business is too risky. How is that fair?" It wasn't fair, but I was beginning to realize that fairness had never been the standard in my family. Ashley had always received different treatment, different expectations, and different levels of support. What made it worse was discovering that this pattern had been escalating. Through various family conversations and social media posts, I learned that over the past 2 years, our parents had also paid for Ashley's apartment security deposit, helped her pay off credit card debt from a failed online boutique venture, and funded a month-long trip to Europe for creative inspiration. They weren't just supporting her photography business. They were subsidizing her entire lifestyle while she played at being an entrepreneur. The total amount they had given her was staggering. Equipment, studio costs, living expenses, debt payment, travel expenses. We were talking about well over $50,000 in just 2 years. Meanwhile, I had been working overtime, saving aggressively, and researching every aspect of my business plan for 18 months, only to be told that $16,000 was too much financial risk for the family. That's when I learned something that made everything even worse. 3 months after launching TaskBridge with my own funding, I was driving to my parents' house for our monthly Sunday dinner when I saw it sitting in their driveway. A brand new BMW X7, pristine white with temporary dealer plates. I sat in my 10-year-old Honda Civic for a full minute, staring at that car. A BMW X7 starts at around $60,000 for the base model, but this one had upgraded wheels, premium interior, and technology packages that would push the price well above $70,000. I walked into the house feeling like I was in some kind of alternate reality. "Whose BMW is in the driveway?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Ashley's new car," my mom replied casually, as if we were discussing the weather. She needed something reliable for client meetings and photo shoots. Ashley bounced into the kitchen at that moment, car keys jingling in her hand. "Drake, did you see my new ride?" she said with a huge smile. "Isn't it gorgeous? I've wanted a BMW since college." I stood there, processing this information. My sister, who had dropped out of college, whose photography business consisted mainly of Instagram content, who had never shown any evidence of generating substantial income, was now driving a car that cost more than my entire startup investment request. "How did you afford that?" I asked directly. "Mom and Dad helped me with the down payment and co-signed the loan," Ashley said, examining her manicured nails. "They understand that image is important in the creative industry. I need to look successful to attract high-end clients." My father chose that moment to join the conversation. "It's a good investment," he said. "Ashley's business is growing, and she needs reliable transportation. Plus, BMW holds its value well." I felt something snap inside me. "You co-signed a loan for a $70,000 car," I said slowly, "for someone whose business income can't support the payments." "Ashley is building her brand," my mother said defensively. She's getting more client bookings every month. What client bookings? I asked. I follow her on Instagram. Most of her posts are lifestyle content and personal photos. Ashley's demeanor shifted. You don't understand the creative industry, Drake. Building a personal brand is essential. My followers trust me because they see my lifestyle. That translates to business opportunities. This was insane. I had asked for a $16,000 family investment in a business with detailed financial projections, market research, and a working prototype. They had said it was too risky and they couldn't afford to lose that money, but they had co-signed a loan for a luxury car that would cost Ashley over $1,000 per month in payments, insurance, and maintenance. For someone with no consistent income stream, let me get this straight, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. You wouldn't invest $16,000 in my tech startup because it was too risky, but you'll co-sign a $70,000 car loan. That's different, my dad said. Ashley needs the car for her business. Your app was just an idea. My app was a working prototype with verified market demand and projected revenue streams. I shot back. Ashley's car is a luxury purchase that she can't afford. Ashley rolled her eyes. Maybe if you weren't so boring and conventional, Mom and Dad would believe in your dreams too. They support me because they understand that creativity requires investment and risk-taking. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. I was the one taking risks by starting my own business with my own money. Ashley was the one being handed everything without any personal financial exposure. That's when the full scope of their financial support for Ashley became clear. Over dinner, Ashley casually mentioned other recent business investments our parents had made in her career. They had paid her apartment deposit when she moved to a trendy complex in South Austin. They had paid off her credit card debt from a failed online boutique that sold overpriced vintage clothing. They had funded her professional website development and social media marketing courses, but the most shocking revelation came when Ashley started talking about her upcoming plans. I'm thinking about expanding into wedding photography, she said. I'll need to upgrade my camera equipment again and maybe hire an assistant. Mom and Dad are going to help me get a business credit card that they would undoubtedly co-sign for, adding even more financial exposure to their already extensive commitments to Ashley's ventures. I looked at my parents, really looked at them, and saw something I had never noticed before. They looked stressed. My mom had dark circles under her eyes, and my dad seemed older than his 58 years. How are you guys affording all of this? I asked gently. We're managing, my mom said quickly, but her voice lacked conviction. Are you dipping into retirement savings? I pressed. The look that passed between my parents told me everything I needed to know. We're fine, Drake, my dad said firmly. We believe in supporting our children's dreams. Both children's dreams, I said pointedly. You have a good job and a stable income, my mom replied. Ashley is trying to build something from nothing. She needs more help. This logic was infuriating. I was trying to build something from nothing, too, but I was doing it with my own money and my own risk. Ashley was building her business with their money and their risk. Emma had been quietly listening to this entire exchange, but I could see her growing more upset by the minute. With all due respect, Mrs. Thompson, Emma said carefully, Drake has been working on TaskBridge for over 2 years, has built a working app, secured initial customers, and generated early revenue. This isn't someone who needs help getting started. This is someone who was denied help when it could have made the biggest difference. My mom's face flushed. We're not obligated to fund every business idea our children come up with, but you are obligated to treat them fairly, Emma replied. The conversation deteriorated from there. Ashley became defensive about her business model and lifestyle choices. My parents became defensive about their financial decisions and parenting approach. I became angry about years of unequal treatment, disguised as family support. I left that dinner feeling more alienated from my family than ever before. Emma and I drove home in silence, both of us processing the magnitude of what we had witnessed. That evening, I decided to do some research into my parents' financial situation. I wasn't trying to invade their privacy, but I was genuinely concerned about their ability to support Ashley's expensive lifestyle while maintaining their own financial security. What I discovered through my Uncle Steve, my dad's brother who worked in real estate finance, was even worse than I had imagined. "Your folks refinanced their house about 6 months ago," Uncle Steve mentioned during a phone call. "They pulled out quite a bit of equity. I helped them find a lender, but I was worried about the terms they accepted. Higher interest rate, longer payment period. It's going to impact their retirement plans significantly." My parents had refinanced their house. They had borrowed against their home equity to fund Ashley's lifestyle and business ventures. They had literally put their financial security at risk to support her, while telling me that $16,000 was too much to lose. The betrayal cut deeper than anything I had ever experienced. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about trust, respect, and the fundamental unfairness of how they treated their children. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I was done enabling this family dynamic. I was done accepting unequal treatment as normal. I was done pretending that their financial support of Ashley was reasonable, while their rejection of my business was justified. I was going to succeed with TaskBridge, not despite their lack of support, but because of it. And when they inevitably came to me for help dealing with the financial consequences of their choices, I was going to be ready with my answer. 6 months passed, and everything changed. While my family was dealing with the increasingly expensive reality of supporting Ashley's lifestyle, I was building TaskBridge into a real business. Those first months were brutal. Without the financial cushion my parents could have provided, every dollar mattered. I worked my software engineering job during the day and spent evenings and weekends developing TaskBridge. Emma handled marketing and user experience design while working her own full-time job. We turned our spare bedroom into mission control. 2 desks, multiple monitors, a whiteboard covered with user acquisition strategies and revenue projections. Our social life disappeared. Our free time became a distant memory. But slowly, steadily, TaskBridge began to grow. The breakthrough came in month 4. I had been networking relentlessly, attending every startup, meetup, and small business event in Austin. At a Chamber of Commerce breakfast, I met Janet Rodriguez, the regional manager for Pinnacle Property Management, a company that managed over 800 rental properties across Central Texas. "I hear you've developed an app for service coordination," Janet said after my 30-second elevator pitch. "That's right. TaskBridge connects property owners with verified service workers for maintenance and repair projects." Janet's eyes lit up. "We spend a fortune coordinating small repairs across our properties. Tenants need everything from leaky faucet fixes to light fixture installations. Our current process involves multiple phone calls, scheduling conflicts, and inconsistent service quality." I spent the next hour walking Janet through TaskBridge's features. The verified worker profiles with ratings and reviews, the instant quote system, the scheduling integration, the photo documentation for completed work, the automated invoicing and payment processing. This could save us thousands of hours and tens of thousands of dollars annually, Janet said. "I want to discuss a partnership agreement." 3 weeks later, I signed my first major contract. Pinnacle Property Management agreed to use TaskBridge exclusively for all maintenance projects under $500 across their entire portfolio. The guaranteed monthly volume was substantial enough to support 2 full-time employees and significant app development improvements. But the real validation came from the workers and homeowners using the platform. TaskBridge wasn't just solving my imagined problem, it was solving real pain points for real people. Miguel Santos, an electrician who specialized in small residential projects, sent me a message that I still keep saved on my phone. This app changed my business. I used to spend half my day driving around giving estimates for small jobs. Now I can quote 10 projects in the time it used to take me to quote 2. My income has increased 40% since joining TaskBridge. Sarah Chen, a homeowner in Northwest Austin, left a review that made Emma cry happy tears. I'm a single mom with a busy work schedule. TaskBridge made it so easy to get my bathroom faucet fixed. I posted the job at 10 p.m., had 3 quotes by morning, and the work was completed before I got home from work. The whole process took less than 24 hours and cost exactly what was quoted. This app is a lifesaver. Stories like these kept me motivated during the 18-hour workdays and the stress of bootstrap funding. Every positive review, every successful job completion, every worker who joined the platform was proof that I had been right about the market opportunity. By month 6, TaskBridge had facilitated over 1,500 jobs, maintained a 4.9-star average rating, and generated enough revenue to support Emma and me working on it full-time. The day I quit my software engineering job was one of the most terrifying and exhilarating moments of my life. I was walking away from a 6-figure salary and comprehensive benefits to bet everything on my startup. But TaskBridge's growth trajectory and revenue projections supported the decision. Emma had been tracking our key performance indicators obsessively. User acquisition was exceeding our most optimistic projections. Worker retention rates were above 90%. Customer satisfaction scores were consistently high. Most importantly, word-of-mouth referrals were driving substantial organic growth. Drake, we're not just building a successful business, Emma said one evening as we reviewed our quarterly numbers. We're building something that actually makes people's lives better. That's incredibly rare. She was right. TaskBridge wasn't just profitable. It was meaningful. We were creating economic opportunities for skilled workers while solving genuine problems for homeowners and property managers. The local tech community began taking notice. Austin Business Journal featured TaskBridge in their emerging company spotlight. Built in Austin wrote a detailed article about our bootstrap approach to startup funding. I was invited to speak on a panel about entrepreneurship at the University of Texas Business School. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was being recognized as an innovative entrepreneur, while my parents continued to see my venture as a risky gamble. In month 8, we reached a major milestone: $1 million in total transaction volume facilitated through the platform. To celebrate, Emma and I took our first weekend off in months and drove to the Texas Hill Country for a bed and breakfast getaway. I have something to tell you, Emma said over dinner at a restaurant overlooking Lake Travis. My heart stopped for a moment, but her smile told me it was good news. I got a call from Techstars today, she continued. They want to interview us for their Austin Accelerator program. Techstars was one of the most prestigious startup accelerators in the country. Getting accepted would mean access to mentorship, funding, and a network that could accelerate TaskBridge's growth exponentially. Emma, that's incredible, I said. How did they hear about us? Apparently, one of their portfolio companies used TaskBridge for office maintenance and was so impressed they recommended us to their program director. The Techstars interview process was intense but exhilarating. We presented to a panel of successful entrepreneurs and investors, defending our business model, growth strategy, and market opportunity. The questions were tough, but 18 months of bootstrap development had prepared us for every possible challenge. 3 weeks later, we received the acceptance email. TaskBridge had been selected for the Techstars Austin program, along with funding to accelerate our growth and access to a network of mentors and potential investors. The day after we got the Techstars news, Emma and I made another major decision. We started looking for a house to buy together. After months of reinvesting every penny into the business, TaskBridge's revenue had stabilized enough to support a mortgage application. We found a beautiful 3-bedroom house in Mueller, a planned community in East Austin known for its young professional population and startup culture. The house had a home office that would be perfect for TaskBridge's continued development, and the neighborhood was full of potential customers and workers for our platform. The day we closed on the house was the day everything I had worked for became real. I was a homeowner, a successful entrepreneur, and engaged to the woman who had supported my dreams when my own family wouldn't. That evening, as Emma and I celebrated in our new home with takeout Thai food and a bottle of champagne, I felt a sense of vindication that was both satisfying and bittersweet. I had proven that TaskBridge wasn't just a pipe dream or a risky gamble. I had built something valuable, something sustainable, something that justified every hour of work and every dollar of investment. But even in that moment of triumph, I couldn't shake the hurt of my family's lack of support. I had succeeded despite them, not because of them, and that reality colored every achievement. That's when my phone rang. The caller ID showed my mother's number, and something in my gut told me this wasn't a congratulatory call about the house or Techstars or any of TaskBridge's success. This was going to be something much more complicated. "Drake, honey, we need to talk," my mom said, her voice shaky and strained. "Can you come over? There's been a situation with Ashley." The panic in her voice cut through my celebration instantly. Despite everything, these were still my parents, and something was seriously wrong. "What kind of situation?" I asked. "Just come over, please," my mom said. "Your father and I don't know what to do." Emma and I looked at each other across our new kitchen. Our celebration was over. The bill for Ashley's supported lifestyle was finally coming due, and somehow I already knew they were going to ask me to pay it. Emma and I arrived at my parents' house an hour later to find them sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by papers, looking more defeated than I had ever seen them. My mom had been crying, and my dad looked like he had aged 10 years since our last dinner. "Thank you for coming," my mom said quietly. We didn't know who else to call. I sat down across from them, Emma beside me, and waited for them to explain what had happened. My dad cleared his throat. "Ashley is in Europe," he began. "She left 3 weeks ago for what she called a business development trip. Photography workshops in Barcelona, networking opportunities in Paris, inspiration shoots in the Italian countryside." "Okay," I said carefully. "What's the problem?" "She maxed out the business credit card we co-signed," my mom said, her voice barely above a whisper. $65,000 in 3 weeks. I felt my stomach drop. $65,000? Hotels, restaurants, shopping, equipment purchases, travel expenses, my dad continued. "We just received the statement. The credit card company is demanding immediate payment, but that wasn't the worst part. The BMW payment is 3 months behind," my mom added. "We've been covering it since she left, but we can't afford both the car payment and the credit card debt, and the studio lease." I asked, though I already knew the answer. 2 months behind, my dad confirmed. "The landlord is threatening eviction." Emma reached over and squeezed my hand. I could feel her tension matching my own growing anger. "Where exactly is Ashley right now?" I asked. My mom pulled out her phone and showed me Ashley's Instagram stories from that morning. My sister was posting from what appeared to be a luxury hotel in Rome, showing off designer purchases, expensive meals, and scenic photography locations. "She's not answering our calls," my dad said. "When we try to text her about coming home to deal with this situation, She replies that she's in the middle of important business networking and can't be interrupted. The audacity was breathtaking. Ashley had racked up $65,000 in debt on a credit card my parents were responsible for, abandoned her financial obligations, and was continuing to spend money while posting about her luxury vacation on social media. "How much total debt are we talking about?" Emma asked gently. My parents exchanged a look that told me the number was worse than I could imagine. "The credit card debt is $65,000. My dad said slowly. "The BMW payments we've covered, plus interest and late fees, bring it to about $12,000. The studio lease debt is around $8,000. Plus, there are other smaller debts that Ashley had been handling that we just learned about." "Other debts?" I asked. "Personal credit cards we didn't know about," my mom said. "Student loans from the Art Institute that we thought were paid off. Store credit accounts. We're still getting calls from creditors." The total they could identify was approaching $90,000 in Ashley-related debt. But the real crisis went deeper than that. We refinanced the house 6 months ago to help Ashley with her initial business setup, my dad explained. We pulled out $60,000 in home equity to fund her studio, equipment, and initial operating expenses. Our mortgage payment tripled, my mom added. We went from paying $800 a month to $2,400 a month, and you haven't been able to keep up, I said, understanding the scope of their financial disaster. "We're 3 months behind on the new mortgage," my dad confirmed. "The bank is starting foreclosure proceedings. My parents were facing the loss of their home because they had borrowed against their equity to fund Ashley's lifestyle, and she had responded by abandoning her financial responsibilities and disappearing to Europe on an expensive vacation." The silence in the kitchen was deafening. Finally, my mom spoke. "Drake, we know we made mistakes. We know we should have listened to you about Ashley's spending and priorities, but we need help." "What kind of help?" I asked, though I suspected I knew what was coming. "Your house in Mueller," my dad said. "If you sold it and gave us the proceeds, it would be enough to pay off Ashley's debts and catch up on our mortgage payments." I stared at them in disbelief. They wanted me to sell the house Emma and I had just bought with our TaskBridge profits to bail them out of the financial consequences of their support for Ashley. "You want me to sell my house," I said slowly, "to pay for Ashley's vacation and shopping spree." "It's not just about Ashley," my mom said quickly. "It's about saving our house. We're your parents. Doesn't that mean anything?" The emotional manipulation was exactly what I had expected, but it still stung. "Let me understand this correctly," Emma said, her voice controlled but clearly angry. "You refused to invest $16,000 in Drake's business because it was too risky, but you borrowed $60,000 against your home equity to fund Ashley's business, co-signed for a $70,000 car she couldn't afford, and gave her access to a $65,000 credit line. Now that she's defaulted on everything and disappeared, you want Drake to sell his house to pay for your financial decisions." When Emma laid it out like that, the absurdity was undeniable. "Ashley is going through a difficult time," my mom said defensively. "She's struggling to find herself and build her career." "Ashley is 26 years old," I replied. "She's not struggling to find herself. She's avoiding responsibility while you enable her behavior. We're a family," my dad said. "Family helps family." That's when I learned something that pushed me completely over the edge. "How much have you sent Ashley since she's been in Europe?" I asked directly. The guilty look that passed between my parents gave me my answer. "We sent her emergency funds twice," my mom admitted. "She said she was stranded and needed help getting home." "How much?" $3,000 each time," my dad said quietly. $6,000 in emergency funds sent to someone who was posting pictures of luxury hotels and designer shopping bags on Instagram, They had sent Ashley more money for her European vacation than they had been willing to invest in my business plan. Even now, facing foreclosure on their house and bankruptcy from her debts, they were still sending Ashley money instead of demanding that she come home and face the consequences of her choices. "I need to ask you something," I said, looking directly at my parents. "Do you believe Ashley is ever going to pay back any of this money?" The silence that followed answered my question completely. "She's going to come home eventually," my mom said weakly. "She'll get her business sorted out and start making payments." "Mom, Ashley doesn't have a business," I said gently but firmly. "She has an expensive hobby funded by your retirement savings." "That's not fair," my dad protested. "She's trying to build something meaningful." "Dad, I spent 18 months building something meaningful," I replied. "I showed you market research, financial projections, and a working prototype. You said it was too risky. Ashley has never shown you a business plan, revenue projections, or evidence of sustainable income. But you've given her over $150,000 in direct funding and guaranteed debt." The numbers hung in the air between us. $150,000. That's what my parents had invested in Ashley's lifestyle, while telling me they couldn't afford to lose $16,000. "We're going to lose our house," my mom said, tears flowing freely now. I felt torn between compassion for their situation and anger about the choices that had led them here. These were my parents, and I loved them despite everything. But I also couldn't ignore the fundamental unfairness of what they were asking. "If I sell my house to bail you out," I said carefully, "what's to stop Ashley from creating the same crisis again? What's to stop you from continuing to enable her spending while expecting me to be the family safety net? This time will be different," my dad said. "We've learned our lesson." But even as he said it, I could see the doubt in his eyes. They had learned this lesson multiple times over the years, and it had never stuck. "I need time to think," I told them finally. "Drake, the foreclosure hearing is next week," my mom said urgently. "We don't have time." "Then maybe you should have thought about that before you sent Ashley $6,000 for her European vacation," Emma said quietly. We left my parents' house that night with their desperate plea hanging over us like a storm cloud. The drive home was silent, both of us processing the magnitude of what they had asked and the impossible position they had put me in. Back in our new home, Emma and I sat in our empty living room and tried to figure out what to do. "If you sell the house, you're enabling the same pattern that created this mess," Emma said. "Your parents make bad financial decisions. Ashley takes advantage of their support, and you're expected to fix everything." She was right, but the alternative was watching my parents lose their home. "They're my parents," I said. "I can't just let them become homeless." "They're not going to become homeless," Emma replied. "They're going to face consequences for their choices. There's a difference." That's when I realized I needed to know one more piece of information before I could make any decision. I called my Uncle Steve. "Uncle Steve, I need to ask you about my parents' financial situation," I said. "If they lose the house to foreclosure, what are their options?" "Well, they'd have to find a rental property," he replied. "Their credit would be damaged for a few years, but they both have steady income. They could rebuild." "What about retirement?" "That's the real problem," Uncle Steve said. "They borrowed against their home equity and their 401k to support Ashley. Their retirement savings are essentially gone. They'll be working well into their 70s now. My parents had sacrificed their financial security and their retirement to support Ashley's lifestyle, and now they wanted me to sacrifice my financial security to rescue them from the consequences." As I hung up the phone, I knew what my answer had to be. The next morning, I called my parents and asked them to come to our house. If I was going to have this conversation, it needed to be on my territory, in the home that Emma and I had worked so hard to buy. They arrived looking hopeful, probably assuming I had decided to sell the house and rescue them. My mom carried a folder of paperwork related to their debts, as if I had agreed to help them organize their financial rehabilitation. "I've made my decision," I told them as we sat in our living room. "Thank good you," my mom said, relief flooding her voice. "I knew you wouldn't abandon family." "I'm not selling my house," I said clearly. The hope drained from their faces instantly. "Drake, you don't understand," my dad said urgently. "We're going to lose everything." "No, Dad, you don't understand," I replied. "You already lost everything when you borrowed against your retirement to enable Ashley's lifestyle. Selling my house won't fix the fundamental problem. The fundamental problem is that we need money to save our home," my mom said sharply. "The fundamental problem is that you've spent 6 years making increasingly poor financial decisions to support Ashley while expecting me to be grateful for neglect," I said. "And now you want me to sacrifice my success to pay for your mistakes." I stood up and walked to our kitchen, where I had prepared a folder of my own. "Let me show you something," I said, returning with printouts of TaskBridge's financial statements and growth projections. "This is the business you thought was too risky to invest $16,000 in." I laid out our revenue charts, user growth statistics, and partnership agreements. TaskBridge generated over $400,000 in revenue last year. I continued. "We're on track to generate over $1 million this year. We've been accepted into Techstars, which values the company at over $2 million. Your $16,000 investment would now be worth approximately $200,000. My parents stared at the numbers in silence. "But that's not the point," I said. "The point is that you looked at 18 months of research, a working prototype, and a detailed business plan, and you decided it was too risky. But you looked at Ashley's Instagram account and decided that was worth $150,000 in guaranteed debt. We thought we were supporting her dreams," my mom said weakly. "No, you were supporting her lifestyle," Emma interjected. "There's a difference between investing in someone's business and subsidizing their spending habits." I sat back down across from my parents. "I'll tell you what I'm willing to do," I said. "I'll help you find a financial counselor. I'll help you create a budget. I'll help you navigate bankruptcy proceedings if that becomes necessary. I'll even help you find a rental property if you lose the house. But you won't help us save our home," my dad said. "I won't enable the pattern of financial irresponsibility that caused this crisis," I corrected. "And I won't reward Ashley's behavior by rescuing her from the consequences of her choices." "Ashley made mistakes," my mom protested. "But she's still your sister." "Ashley didn't make mistakes," I said firmly. "Ashley made choices. She chose to max out credit cards that you were responsible for. She chose to default on financial obligations that you had guaranteed. She chose to abandon her responsibilities and go to Europe. And she chose to keep spending your money while posting about her luxury vacation on social media. The truth was finally out in the open, and it was uglier than any of us wanted to acknowledge." "What if Ashley comes back and makes this right?" my dad asked. "Then she can work with creditors to create payment plans and slowly rebuild her credit," I replied. "But that's her responsibility, not mine. We raised you better than this," my mom said, her tone becoming hostile. "We taught you to take care of family. You raised me to be responsible for my choices and to work for what I wanted," I replied. "You apparently raised Ashley to expect other people to pay for her choices and to take what she wanted." The conversation continued for another 2 hours, but the outcome never changed. My parents tried guilt, anger, manipulation, and pleading. They threatened to cut off contact with me. They accused me of being selfish and heartless. They suggested that I was abandoning them in their time of greatest need. Through it all, Emma sat beside me, providing silent support and occasional reinforcement of the key points. Her presence reminded me that I wasn't just making this decision for myself, but for our future together and the family we might someday have. Finally, my parents left, angry and disappointed but no longer hopeful that I would change my mind. That evening, my phone rang constantly. Ashley had apparently learned about my refusal to sell the house and had finally decided to call me directly from Italy. "Drake, what is wrong with you?" she screamed into the phone. "Our parents are about to lose their house, and you won't help them." "Ashley, our parents are about to lose their house because you defaulted on $90,000 in debt that they guaranteed," I replied calmly. "I'm going through a difficult time," she said. "I needed space to figure out my life and my business direction. You needed space to spend $65,000 on vacation while abandoning your financial responsibilities." I corrected. "This is temporary," Ashley insisted. "I'm going to pay everything back when I get home and get my business stabilized." "When are you coming home?" I asked. The pause told me everything I needed to know. "I'm not sure yet," she finally said. "I'm in the middle of important networking opportunities that could transform my business." Ashley had no intention of coming home to face the financial crisis she had created. She was planning to continue her expensive European adventure while expecting our parents to manage the debt and me to fund the rescue. "Ashley, you're 26 years old," I said. "It's time to start facing the consequences of your choices." "You've always been jealous of my creativity and my dreams," she replied. "Just because you're boring and conventional doesn't mean you have to destroy my life." "I'm not destroying your life," I said. "I'm refusing to enable your irresponsibility." Ashley hung up on me, but not before making it clear that she blamed me for the family financial crisis rather than taking any responsibility for her role in creating it. Over the following days, extended family members began contacting me. Some supported my decision, understanding that enabling Ashley would only perpetuate the destructive pattern. Others pressured me to prioritize family loyalty over financial responsibility. My cousin Mark was particularly blunt. "Ashley has been taking advantage of your parents for years. Everyone can see it except them. If you bail them out now, she'll just do it again." But my Aunt Sarah took the opposite position. "Those are your parents, Drake. They raised you and supported you. How can you let them lose their house?" The family pressure was intense, but it didn't change the fundamental facts of the situation. My parents had made a series of increasingly poor financial decisions to support Ashley's lifestyle. Ashley had responded by taking increasingly greater advantage of their support, and now both of them expected me to sacrifice my own financial security to rescue them from consequences they had created. I couldn't do it, not just because it would hurt my own financial situation, but because it would perpetuate the exact pattern of behavior that had created the crisis in the first place. That's when I learned about Ashley's final act of betrayal. 2 days later, I received a call from my business banker. "Mr. Thompson, I'm calling about a loan application we received with your name and business information," the banker said. "There seems to be some confusion about the documentation." "I didn't apply for any loans," I said, confused. "The application is for a $70,000 business loan using TaskBridge as collateral," he continued. "But the signature on the paperwork doesn't match our records, and some of the business information appears to be incorrect." My blood ran cold. "Can you email me copies of the application?" Within an hour, I was staring at loan paperwork that had been filled out with my personal information, TaskBridge's business details, and a forged version of my signature. The application claimed that I needed the money for business expansion and listed my parents' address as the contact information. Ashley had attempted to steal my identity and use TaskBridge's success as collateral to fund her debt payments. She had tried to solve her financial crisis by taking out a loan in my name without my knowledge or consent. I immediately called the police and filed a report for identity theft and fraud. I also called my parents to inform them of what Ashley had done. She was desperate, my mom said, her voice barely audible. She was trying to find a solution that wouldn't hurt anyone. She was trying to steal $70,000 using my identity and business, I replied. That's felony fraud. The fact that my mom was still making excuses for Ashley's behavior, even after she had committed identity theft against me, confirmed that I had made the right decision. I would not sell my house to rescue my parents from the consequences of their choices. I would not enable Ashley's continued irresponsibility. And I would not sacrifice my financial security to perpetuate a family dynamic that had hurt everyone involved. For the first time in my life, I was setting boundaries with my family and demanding accountability for their actions. It was terrifying, but it was also liberating. 6 months later, I was standing on the stage at the Austin Convention Center, addressing an audience of over 500 entrepreneurs, investors, and business leaders at the annual Techstars Demo Day. TaskBridge had not only survived the family crisis, but had thrived during the most challenging period of my life. TaskBridge now facilitates over $10 million in annual transaction volume, I announced to the audience. We've expanded to Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio, with plans to enter the Phoenix and Denver markets by the end of the year. The applause was energizing, but what made the moment truly special was seeing Emma in the front row, beaming with pride. Beside her sat my parents. Yes, my parents were there. The last 6 months had been a journey of consequences, accountability, and slow reconciliation for our entire family. After I refused to sell my house, my parents had faced the full reality of their financial situation. They lost the house to foreclosure, as I had predicted they would, but they didn't become homeless. They found a modest 2-bedroom rental in a different part of Austin, downsized their lifestyle significantly, and began the process of rebuilding their financial foundation. The experience was humbling for them, but it was also educational. For the first time in years, they were forced to live within their means and make financial decisions based on reality, rather than wishful thinking about Ashley's potential. Ashley eventually returned from Europe, but not voluntarily. Her credit cards were finally canceled, her access to family funding was cut off, and she ran out of money for her extended vacation. She came home to face a mountain of debt, no income, and the legal consequences of attempting to commit identity theft. The identity theft charges were eventually dropped after Ashley agreed to complete a financial responsibility program and make restitution payments. But the experience forced her to confront the reality that her lifestyle had been completely unsustainable. The change in Ashley was gradual but real. Faced with the choice between taking responsibility for her situation or facing serious legal consequences, she finally chose accountability. She got a job working retail at a clothing store in South Austin. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady income. She moved into a small studio apartment that she could afford on her retail salary. She started making monthly payments on her debts, slowly but consistently. Most importantly, she stopped posting lifestyle content on Instagram. Her social media presence shifted from luxury vacation photos to documenting her journey toward financial responsibility. She even started a blog called Recovering from Entitlement, where she wrote honestly about the consequences of her choices and the process of learning to support herself. The transformation wasn't immediate or perfect. Ashley still struggled with the adjustment from a subsidized lifestyle to financial independence. She still occasionally asked our parents for money, though they had finally learned to say no. She still sometimes resented the loss of her previous privileges. But she was working, paying her own bills, and slowly rebuilding her relationship with our family based on respect rather than financial dependence. My parents' journey was equally challenging. Losing their house forced them to confront the magnitude of their financial mistakes and the long-term consequences of their choices. They had to adjust to a much smaller living space, a tighter budget, and the reality that their retirement would be delayed by several years. But the experience also brought them closer together and gave them a clearer understanding of healthy family dynamics. They began attending financial counseling sessions, learning to set boundaries with their children, and rebuilding their savings slowly and systematically. 3 months after losing the house, my dad called me with an apology that was years overdue. "Drake, I need to tell you something," he said during a phone conversation. "You were right about Ashley, about our financial decisions, and about your business. We should have supported you from the beginning." "Dad, I appreciate that," I replied. "But what matters now is how we move forward. We've learned from this experience," he continued. "We understand now that helping someone means supporting their growth, not preventing them from facing consequences." That conversation opened the door to a new relationship with my parents. Instead of being the responsible son who was taken for granted, I became a trusted advisor who helped them navigate their financial recovery. Instead of being expected to rescue them from poor decisions, I was respected for my business judgment and financial wisdom. The family's Sunday dinners gradually resumed, but with very different dynamics. Ashley would arrive after her retail shift, tired but proud of earning her own money. My parents would share updates on their budget progress and retirement planning. Emma and I would discuss TaskBridge's growth and our plans for the future. Most importantly, financial discussions became open and honest rather than secretive and manipulative. When Ashley needed help with budget planning, she asked for advice rather than money. When my parents wanted to understand investment options, they sought guidance rather than bailouts. TaskBridge continued to grow throughout this period, fueled by the lessons I had learned about boundaries, accountability, and the difference between enabling and supporting. Our acceptance into Techstars led to connections with angel investors and eventually a Series A funding round that valued the company at $12 million. We expanded our team to 15 employees, opened offices in Dallas and Houston, and launched partnerships with major property management companies across Texas. But the success that meant the most to me was the letter I received from Miguel Santos, the electrician who had been one of our early platform workers. "Drake, I wanted to let you know that TaskBridge helped me save enough money to buy my first house," he wrote. "My family has been renting for 15 years, and we never thought homeownership was possible. But the steady income from TaskBridge jobs allowed us to build up savings for a down payment. We closed on our house last week, and I wanted to thank you for creating something that actually changed our lives." Stories like Miguel's reminded me why I had started TaskBridge in the first place. It wasn't just about building a successful business. It was about creating opportunities and solving real problems for real people. As I concluded my presentation at Demo Day, I looked out at the audience and thought about the journey that had brought me to this moment. Building TaskBridge taught me that success isn't just about having a good idea or access to funding, I said. It's about persistence, accountability, and the courage to set boundaries with people who don't support your vision. The audience applauded, but I was speaking directly to my parents and Ashley, who had made the journey from financial crisis to this celebration of success. After the presentation, as we celebrated at the after-party, my mom approached me with tears in her eyes. "I'm so proud of you," she said, "not just for TaskBridge's success, but for having the strength to do what was right, even when it was difficult." "Thanks, Mom," I replied. "But the real victory is that we're all here together, having learned from our mistakes and grown from our experiences." Ashley joined our conversation, still adjusting to being included in family discussions based on mutual respect rather than financial dependence. "Drake, I owe you an apology," she said quietly. "I blamed you for not rescuing me from my problems, but you actually did something much more valuable. You forced me to rescue myself." 3 months later, Emma and I were planning our wedding when we received unexpected news. Ashley had saved enough money from her retail job to enroll in business courses at Austin Community College. She wasn't pursuing another entrepreneurial venture. She was studying accounting and business management. "I want to understand how money actually works," she explained when she told us about her enrollment. "I want to build something sustainable instead of just chasing the next expensive opportunity." Emma and I decided to hire Ashley as TaskBridge's first accounting assistant, giving her practical experience to supplement her studies. It was a risk, but it was also an opportunity for her to contribute to our family's success rather than just benefiting from it. Our wedding was a celebration of more than just Emma and my commitment to each other. It was a celebration of a family that had learned to support each other's growth rather than enable each other's weaknesses. As I danced with Emma at our reception, I reflected on the life lesson that had emerged from the most challenging period of my life. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for family is to refuse to enable their destructive choices. True support means helping people grow, not preventing them from facing the natural consequences of their actions. My parents had learned to set boundaries with Ashley. Ashley had learned to take responsibility for her choices. Emma and I had learned that success shared with people who respect your journey is infinitely more satisfying than success achieved despite their opposition. TaskBridge continued to thrive, but more importantly, so did our family relationships. We had all learned that accountability, respect, and genuine support create stronger foundations than financial rescue and emotional manipulation. As Emma and I started our married life together, I knew that the boundaries I had set with my family had not only saved my business and our financial future, but had also created the possibility for authentic, healthy relationships based on mutual respect rather than financial dependence. The BMW that had started this entire journey was eventually repossessed, but Ashley was riding the bus to work and to school with more dignity and purpose than she had ever shown while driving a car she couldn't afford. My parents were renting a smaller home, but they were building genuine financial security for their retirement and contributing to family gatherings with wisdom and support rather than crisis and drama. And TaskBridge was facilitating millions of dollars in economic opportunity for workers and homeowners across Texas, proving that sometimes the biggest risks lead to the most meaningful rewards. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who didn't support your dreams? Have you found yourself in a position where helping someone actually meant saying no to their requests? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more content about entrepreneurship, family dynamics, and the courage to pursue your dreams despite opposition. Share this with someone who might need to hear that success earned through your own determination is more valuable than success handed to you by others. Thank you for joining me on this journey. And remember, the most powerful word you can learn to say is no when people ask you to sacrifice your future for their mistakes. Your dreams are worth protecting, and the people who truly love you will eventually understand that enabling destructive behavior helps no one in the long run.